Buy or sell, buy or sell. Anyone need tickets for PopJunkie? Tickets for PopJunkie, love?
Oh, I'll have one. How much? £20?
Oh, I think you can afford that, love. I'm sure we could some arrangement. Come back later when you're grown up.
Okay.
Ticketing, the great rock and roll swindle, and more importantly, why we always have to drink Carling at rock gigs.
So I've got a bit of a bee in my bonnet this week, and it's over ticket touting. Now, not the normal ticket touting like Sean demonstrated earlier on.
You have to have a hat on to do ticket touting, don't you? It's
Yeah, you do.
and probably a beard as well.
And some tattoos and quite a harsh Cockney accent.
I just need to get some tattoos then, really.
Yeah,
don't
pretty
I?
much. So what I'm talking about is mass corporate organised ticket touting, which I believe companies like Seatwave and Go do. So we've all been there. You know, you've had your emails all week saying Oasis tickets on sale Friday, 10 o'clock, don't forget, don't forget. Well, I had the same thing last week. So I'm on there, I've set the alarm, I've set the reminder on my clock, I've told everybody I know to remind me to do it. I go online, the website's crashing, you know, you've got 4 different windows open from different ticketing sites, and it's just not going on. You're not going to get tickets. But the day before, you could have gone on Seatwave or Go and bought those tickets at about 4 times the face value. Now, there's something kind of going wrong here, because they must be buying those tickets off the promoters in a really large scale before the tickets even been released to the punters. And that's just not fair, is it?
It's bulk buying, and it's you know, it takes it away from the people who actually want to actually be able to go out and get the gig. Yeah, go and see the gigs and buy the tickets. It just adds to the problem, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's not really fair. I mean, I think we all know ticket prices have gone up a lot in the past few years. You know, for example, thinking about going to see Goldfrapp next weekend, and you know, Goldfrapp, quite a good band, but £35 for a ticket to go to Brixton Academy, when that used to be the price for a day ticket for a festival a few years back. It's just not fair.
I remember the days when you could go to a gig, you could have a couple of pints, you could spend £5 to get in, and still have enough for a fish and chips up on the way home and a cab back to your mum and dad's house.
Yeah, so I guess what we're kind of saying here is that, you know, we're not necessarily against ticket touting. You know, sometimes one of the most frustrating things about gigs is you buy a ticket and you can't go, and you can't get a refund on your ticket. You do have to resell it. But normally, you know, I think most big music fans would resell that ticket at the face value, or a little bit under, give it to their mates or whatever. But people going on eBay and buying up 10 tickets for gigs and then selling them on £100, it's just, you know, it's capitalism gone bloody bananas, and it's just ruining the whole music scene vibe. Another thing that pees me off about gigs at the moment is everywhere being sponsored by Carling, so you don't have much choice but drink flipping Carling everywhere you go.
But do you notice though, if ever you go to a venue that's sponsored by Carling, the first beer they always run out of is always Carling. Have you noticed that? You go out to the Carling Academy, oh, I'd like a pint of lager, please. Sorry, we haven't got any Carling left. You kind of think they might have actually got some Carling into a Carling endorsed venue that would probably last the whole night.
Well, I'd have rather anything than Carling.
You're a cider drinker though, aren't you?
Yeah, but the cider choice, so you've either got Strongbow or blooming Magners. It's just...
Okay, so...
It's starting to really frustrate me, the whole gig scene in London at the moment.
So your argument basically is that the whole gig scene has become a lot more corporate than it was, and it's being controlled by a few fat cats, and you know, all the venues are sponsored, so a lot of the venues lose their spontaneity. You know, people don't say I went to the Carling Academy, people still want to say I went to Brixton Academy, we've got the Hammersmith Apollo. So I think that, you know, what's happened with festivals is happening with gigs, and it happened first with festivals.
Yeah, totally.
That corporate kind of...
yeah, people, you know, not wanting to go to Reading anymore. You know, fair play to me and Fiddler, who've dropped the whole Carling sponsorship now. So Reading has now become, again, Reading Festival.
And the Mean Fiddler Festival, the one that was on earlier this year with Neil Young, Primal Scream, Supergrass, I don't remember the name of the festival, was it? But it was the one that the Vince Power had kind of...
yes.
Which was going to be the festival that was kind of no sponsorship, no corporate...
Yeah.
And I think, you know, that's got to be a good thing, isn't it?
I think so, but I think it's not just festivals and the big gigs, you know. I go to a lot of, you know, as I know, I go see a lot of new bands, and sort of follow that scene quite closely. And one of the things that I'd say I find quite frustrating is that, you know, a lot of small venues on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday night are still charging you £5 to get in when none of the bands on their set list are known. Number two, promoters don't really seem to have that same hunger anymore, where they want to get the best new band on their list. They want them to play at their venue rather than someone else's. So they're mix and matching bands. Like my friend, you know, I've got obviously friends who have sort of been bands and stuff, and you know, it's really frustrating because you might be into their music and they're put on a set list of people who are just completely different. You know, you might, you know, got friends band who's electro, they're put on with like, you know, a hip hop act and
it's
a
almost
real
like
rock act.
it almost ends up ending up, rather than being like a gig night, it almost ends up like a battle of the band showcase, which it shouldn't be. When I've promoted gigs, and I try and put bands on together that have a little bit of a similarity or common theme, you'll get the same people there.
And it's a benefit for the bands, then, isn't it? Because they get to have another band's fans there that might be interested in their music. And that, I just think it's a bit of a shame at the moment. I think promoters aren't doing the job that they were doing maybe 5 or 10 years ago, where they were really encouraged, and they really were into a type of music or a movement of music and were keen to get those kind of bands in. It's very sporadic. It's kind of like our whole cut and paste attitude to music at the moment, like, remixing all the different stuff. It's almost like, that sort of stuff's happening now at small venues. The other thing I find quite frustrating as well is for acts who are playing at small venues is that they often don't have a bass guitar amp, which is really bizarre, or a backline. So the bands are basically thrown together on email and asked to, can someone buy a bass amp, or can someone borrow a bass amp? Which means if you're on first, you've got to stay right to the end of the night to lend it out, or you have to pay to rent it off somewhere. Can't these venues just pay for a bass amp? I'm not talking about really tiny venues. I'm talking about some quite big venues in Camden that, to be quite honest, I'm sure they could afford 200 or 300 quid for a bass amp.
So basically you're saying promoters, get your finger out and put themed band nights on, sort your prices out on tickets, stop letting towns buy up all the tickets. Is there anything that can be done? We should start a campaign, shouldn't we?
Well, you know what, I think that you should, I don't know really, what can you do? I think it's just a case of speaking to promoters when you're going to gigs and, saying to them how much more sense it would make to put bands on that are similar. And I think bands have to try and push for that too. When you're booking yourself into a venue, really do some research on who you're playing with, because your fans will thank you for it. Because, you've come out to a lot of gigs that I go to, and sometimes it can be really frustrating because we come out, we have a laugh, we see our mate's band for half an hour, and then it's like, crap, we don't like anyone else here. And we're both quite open-minded with music, I'm kind of quite open to stuff, but sometimes you just get a vibe off a band and then you go on a totally different vibe, and I think it's just laziness, I think no one should buy off Fleetwave and Viagogo. Everybody should make more of an effort to go to some smaller venues, and please, corporate monsters, just leave our little live scene alone in London.
Keep music real. Is that how you do it? I can't remember.